Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he swaggers through the Vortex and arrive at episode 564. And if you ask me, the Jumblies are ripe for conquest. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn. And indeed they are. How is everybody?
Still thought he said Jumblies.
Now, from our perspective, we just recorded our last episode a couple of days ago. A little peek behind the curtain here. So none of us has really done much, but what did you guys do in the last day and a half since we've talked?
Well, Mel and I had a date night last night and finished watching the book club, the second chapter, and it's very cute. And then we also got caught up, at least for us, with Ahsoka. So we are up through episode 6 now. So we just have the last 2. Thank you.
And what do you think of it?
Oh my God, the show is so good.
It really is.
Like, okay, yeah, it's Rebel season 5. Yeah, okay, given. But it features, there's some of the best lightsaber fights that we've had put to film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, these are, incredible. And I don't know how much I want to say without, these episodes have been out, but,
Well, you won't spoil us. We're 2 episodes ahead of you.
Yeah.
And Disney's probably already spoiled stuff for you.
Yeah,
anyways,
probably.
So.
They tend to do that. So
I knew about the episode 4 cameo before I watched the episode because of a poster they released.
I'm trying to think what that cameo
at the very end.
Oh, that one. Yes.
Leading into episode
5. Well, and that whole sequence was incredible.
Wasn't that amazing?
Well, apparently it's so amazing that you guys heard that they're doing a spin-off show, right?
No, I hadn't heard. What?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, apparently, I feel like I need to speak in code, but
that with that character?
With that character in that timeline.
Oh.
In that time frame.
I don't want to see that, I don't think. See, now...
what was good about that is melding of the two worlds.
Yeah, exactly. And here's my thought about that is, I absolutely love that sequence. I love that they went there. I love that they did that. But it seems like studios get this greedy little, let's do... Look, Boba Fett was so popular in this, let's spin it off into another series. And then the series ends up not being very good, and they have to bring Mando in to rescue it. I don't want that. Just give us the little pieces and do what you're doing. Don't mess with what you got going.
I can only report on what I heard. That if you think this is Rebel season 5, just wait for Clone Wars season 8.
Yeah, right.
or potentially 3.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say you couldn't do an 8.
No.
6.5 maybe.
Yeah, no, the shows, and then Mendelsohn as Thrawn is just he was pitch perfect in the show with the voice, but seeing him live was just kind of like
Yeah.
And I loved the stealing of the Japanese idea of repairing things with gold. Cracks in the armor and hull plating on the Star Destroyer. That's just such a Thrawn. I'm going to culturally appropriate this.
Wait, so did you watch 6 or not?
Yes, we did watch 6.
Oh, okay. I thought you said only up to 5.
No, we watched 4, 5, and 6 from the last time.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I was just 7 and 8 now. So
okay.
You guys watched 7, I'm assuming.
So you're only one episode behind.
Yeah, you are only one behind.
Only one behind you.
Well, you said 7 and 8, and I was thinking that was the last 2, but 8 is the last one that's.
Well, yeah, because 8, I guess, technically hasn't come out yet, but we will watch on Tuesday, and it will release on Tuesday. So we're just going to finish off the show next week, so we'll be current with everybody again.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's just so good. Although Hera, I'm a little concerned that she's surprised she's being recalled and in some trouble, because we're 6 episodes in. There's only so many times you can say, I'm a general. What are they going to do to me? Before they do something to you.
They can do something.
Well,
That's called a court martial.
Yeah.
Never you worry. That's all I'll say. Never you worry.
And some of those headlines were misleading headlines too. About that sequence, especially Entertainment Weekly's headline.
Oh, was it? I missed it.
That was very misleading headline.
The cameo
was it written by Owen Gluberman.
The cameo was clever. Was real clever.
Yes,
especially since you couldn't do it a different way. So that's all I'll say. I don't want to spoil it.
Right, because Sean hasn't seen it yet.
I've not seen it yet.
Well, and then
I also got done watching. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I had to break this one up into chunks because it's so long. But I got done watching Babylon.
Babylon.
The
movie.
The movie.
That came out
Brad
like
Pitt,
Margot
2 years
Robbie?
ago,
Margot Robbie,
or was it last year? Might have been last.
It was last year.
Yeah.
It was nominated for an Academy Award last year, so I think it was last year.
Yeah, you're right.
It is.
Didn't come anywhere near it.
There are parts of this movie, especially for us movie buffs, there are parts of this thing that it is absolutely incredibly amazeballs. It's just like, wow. And what an homage, and to the whole era of silent filmmaking transitioning into the talkies. And then there's probably about an hour of just outstanding top shelf filmmaking. Unfortunately, that hour is couched in a 3-hour and 20-minute epic. And not all of it is very epic. It dives into the decadence of Hollywood. And the decadence of Hollywood is very Caligula. Strong stomachs would be needed for a good chunk of it. But parts of it are just incredible. That's it. I'll leave you alone now.
No, it's all right. You had more to do. No, I was going to say the only other thing Keith shares this too, is episode 2 of Redacted came out here in the U.S., so I'm caught up on that now too. And I think, Keith, you said you were too.
Yep. This week.
I actually liked this week's even better than last week, and I thought they were off to a really good start last week. So.
Yeah, I would agree. This is more of that world building episode stuff, which was always really well done.
Yep, absolutely.
Do we know when we're putting that on the schedule yet, or?
I think we're going to probably try to slip it in later this year. We can talk about that afterwards, though.
Yeah.
The other thing I did was I finished season 1 of Wellington Paranormal.
You'll have to.
It's another one I've heard really good things about.
It is the spin-off series of the movie What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, okay.
So it follows 2 Wellington cops assigned to a paranormal unit in Wellington, New Zealand, and them investigating different paranormal goings-ons. There's always in the episodes a sequence that's absolutely side-splittingly hilarious. Like in the first episode, they're looking into a demon possession, and the demon jumps into a little Yorkshire Terrier dog and is chasing the cop around a playground, yelling things at him, and he's jumping around trying to avoid this little small dog while it's spewing demonic phrases and stuff. It's very funny. But overall, most of the episodes are pretty good. There's a werewolf episode that kind of dips in the middle. But the absolute best one is the vampire episode of the season. And it's got, in the middle of it, out of nowhere, for no reason, there's an entire sequence where they're tormented by clowns and are trying to stop them from taking off in a clown car.
Sean's checked out now. He's not going to watch that.
But it's done creepily because it's on like streets.
That's exactly why he's not going to watch it.
And I'm not a big fan of clowns either, but just the lengths they went through on this and just the constant stream of clowns coming in and out of this clown car and the different variations you see it and their reactions and them trying to, corral them. And of course, in their New Zealand accents, they sound like Taika Waititi, and it's hard to take them as serious when they're cops with that accent, just because they sound so nice and friendly.
Yeah.
So they're trying to be mean and severe, and they just don't come across that way. It's it's good. I'm really enjoying it. I tend to notice that if I watch more than one episode at a time, though, the second episode I watch, I don't tend to enjoy as much. So I think I need to watch them spaced out a little bit.
So it's connected to the movie and not the FX series?
I think the FX series somehow connects to the movie, but I've not seen enough of it.
Oh, okay.
But the vampire they deal with in the episode is a vampire from the movie.
Okay. All right.
So it's truly connected to the movie. And the cops show up in the movie, I think, at the end, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
The two police officers. So.
The ones that are the subject of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got you.
But it's totally done in a Cops manner. It's all filmed like it's an episode of Cops.
That's great.
Yeah.
I was just say the series is the same characters, at least mostly, from the movie, but they've transplanted them, so it's kind of a pseudo sequel reboot.
That's the way I took the series to be. So that's why I was asking if it was connected to the movie or if it was connected to the series, because to me the series was just a television version of the movie rather than like a sequel or an addition to it. So
yeah, that's the impression I got too from watching it even. But this is much more of a sequel follow-up.
Gotcha.
And the first season's only like 6 episodes, so it's one of those. It was filmed for New Zealand and released in New Zealand, so it's not like it's a long, drawn-out season either.
Right. Okay.
They all say, who is Doctor?
This is Tim Trelaw.
This is David J. Howe.
I'm Peter Purvis.
I am Sadie Miller. This is Lauren Cornelius.
Larry, it's Fraser.
For all things in the Doctor Who collecting world and beyond, the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. I'm Larry Van Mersbergen, your host, and I've been collecting for 42 years. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex on the Direction Point Podcast Network.
You are invited on an adventure across all of time and space, in a completely random order. It's the Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. Jump in the TARDIS with your hosts,
Eric Gulbranson,
Asad Kheshki,
and
Matthew Kressel.
Explore Doctor Who TV stories, audio adventures, and books, both novels and non-fiction. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. It's the entire Whoniverse on shuffle. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast is a member of the Direction Point Network and is available about once a month wherever you find your podcasts. You are listening to Traveling the Vortex.
Let's talk some news.
Well, we got some sad news to start off with. Unfortunately, Sir Michael Gambon has passed away at the age of 82. Whovian fans will know him as Kazran Sardek and Elliot Sardek from A Christmas Carol. He also went on and did the 6 film stints as Albus Dumbledore in the Harry Potter series. Mm-hmm. He passed away after a bout of pneumonia.
I can't think of, besides Harry Potter and Doctor Who, I honestly can't think of anything except for Gosford Park that he's in, though. I can't think of anything I've seen, but I think he mostly did a lot of independent and British films for most of his life. I think Harry Potter was probably his biggest mainstream film. And I'm sure he's been in other things I haven't seen, but I don't think he wasn't as established in the U.S. as I think he was in the U.K., but He was everything that I saw him in. He was phenomenal. Absolutely loved him as an actor.
He was a voice in, and actor in several of Wes Anderson's films, including Life Aquatic. And,
that's right.
Fantastic Mr. Fox.
That's right. I did.
He was in both Paddington movies.
I didn't remember him in Paddington. I do remember him now in.
He was the voice of Uncle Pezuzzo.
Yes, Pazuzu.
So it was Paddington's Uncle the Bear.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't.
It's short flashbacks.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was who that was.
Toys with Robin Williams, Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow.
Oh, he was in King's Speech too. I do remember him in that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's one of those actors that's really been around forever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think for American audiences, probably not until Harry Potter that it suddenly kind of cemented who this guy was.
Yeah.
He was one of the village elders in Sleepy Hollow in the Tim Burton film.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, several others.
Yeah, it didn't stand out to me.
Well, you didn't know who he was at the time when you saw him, bro.
That's true. Yeah, that's certainly true.
So now if you went back and watched it, you'd probably spot him. Still very sad.
Do we have some good news?
We do have some good news. The BBC have announced that on BBC Three, following new episodes of the show, there will be a confidential style show called Doctor Who Unleashed.
Yay! I hope we get that here. I don't know what the deal.
I hope so too.
I don't know what the details with the Disney Plus contract is, but that would be really nice to have that, because it was really difficult for us to get confidential here. And I really, really liked Confidential because I've always felt like it really kind of opened up and gave you a lot of insight and interesting details about the behind the scenes things going on and what was coming up. And I hope that this takes those reins and kind of does the same thing with it. It sounds like it will.
Seems like it's something that Russell T Davies is fairly passionate about, since his version of the show originally had it, and now he brought something more in depth back, because it's unlike the behind the scenes bonuses that they posted to YouTube in prior
seasons
eras. Yeah. This is going to be a full 30-minute specials again.
Well, and it's one of those things that really, when you think about it, it just kind of makes sense, because you're going to put together a little behind the scenes featurette for the bonus features of the disc anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So just spend a little more time and effort on it, and all of a sudden it's programming, and
exactly.
Then you can air it, and you can charge more for the box sets when they come out, because look at the value. We're also giving you this whole other show.
Precisely.
Hi, I'm Rupert Booth.
I am known as Paul Ferry.
And my name is Barry Williams.
Together, we host Time Ram.
Time Ram's a cruel mistress.
It's a random number generator.
That also.
We roll a number from 1 to 13, and that's our doctor. Then 1 to 300 for the story, and then we ram them together.
Even if it doesn't make sense.
Cruel, I tell you.
Time Ram, putting the wrong doctors in the wrong stories, so you don't have to.
You're listening to Travelling the Vortex.
Hello, fellow time travelers, and welcome to the Doctor Who Target Book Club podcast, the only podcast to discuss, in story order, all the Doctor Who novelizations. My name is Tony Whitt, and every 2 weeks or so, I'm joined by a 2 to 3 person discussion panel, including our so-called expert who's been a Who fan since 1979. That would be me. We also get the views of intermediate, casual, and novice fans who either have never seen the show or who have never read these books until these podcasts, including
Dalton Hughes
and
Alison Fitz-Seyfried.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you find good podcasts, or even ones like ours. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
let's talk a little bit about conventions. Just a reminder, Doctoberfest is coming up in near the end of October, October 21st. That's in Plainfield, Indiana, in the United States. And again, Sophie Aldred will be there. And then, of course, later on in the year, I suppose, next month, we've got Saratoga Comic-Con in Saratoga Saratoga Springs, New York. Eric Roberts will be there. Hope he'll be dressed for the occasion. The Wales Comic-Con is also in November, that same weekend, the 18th and 19th. This one's a big one. It's got Alex Kingston, Paul McGann, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, Peter Davison, David Bradley, among others. And then, of course, Chicago.
Wow. Wow, that's a lineup.
And then Chicago TARDIS in Chicago, Illinois. That's going to be Thanksgiving weekend, November 24th to the 26th. And it has Lisa Bowerman, Michael Troughton, who's playing the second Doctor now, Colin Baker, Carol Ann Ford, Peter Davison, Fraser Hines, and Sylvester McCoy, among others. So that's what we've got coming up on the con schedule, and hopefully soon we can get to Doctoberfest or Chicago TARDIS, which are mostly within driving distance from us. About a day's worth of driving, but still.
We are going on a journey, a very long journey, through the world of the Target novelizations in publication order. Every week we are looking at a new book, talking about Terrence Dicks, Malcolm Hulke, and all our Doctor Who novelization friends. Whatever you do, keep turning the pages. This is Jason Miller of the Doctor Who Literature Podcast, a member of the Direction Point Podcast Network, and you are listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
All right, well, let's move on to reviews. And since we're doing them in Doctor order, but we have the same actor, we'll definitely
this gets tricky.
We'll definitely do the audio first.
Yeah. The Martian Invasion of Planetoid 50.
My scanner indicates that you may have been the Doctor at some point, or that you may be in the future.
That's because I'm stuck in a mid-degenerative state. Probably.
From Big Finish Productions, Doctor Who, Once and Future. The Martian Invasion of Planetoid 50.
I think I must be a future phase.
Mistress, the alarm has been triggered.
Really? Has it really?
No. I simply will not accept it. Something is very wrong.
Now, listen, I have some questions. I want to see if your answers are any different to Jessami's. Where are we, and when are we?
London, Earth. Victorian era.
But I always wanted a pet lizard. Oh, look. You've not touched your food.
Sorry, have we met? I've a head like Swiss cheese.
Oh. Well, look at you. I was hoping for one of the classics.
Time itself, along with our memories, appears out of joint.
It's them! Doctor, it's the Martians!
That thing's using its heat ray. Everyone out before it burns this place to the ground. Come on!
They're coming. Lots of them.
Because only one Time Lord would ever do something so mind-bogglingly, time-consumingly ridiculous.
Oh, you say such pretty things.
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
Oh, my dear Doctor, you have been naive.
The first Doctor arrives in Victorian London amid a Martian invasion, but he discovers not all is what it seems when Missy appears. Soon the Doctor is propelled into a future incarnation, the 10th, but he is not alone in battling Missy and her Martian invaders. The Paternoster gang, Madame Vastra, Jenny Flint, and Strax are also here to assist, but can they offer the Doctor any help in solving his own degeneration mystery?
Sean, wait. Wait. I was gonna have me take my headphones off first, but
what? I couldn't hear that. What?
I'm sorry, you guys talking now? I can't hear you. That's
Take your headphones off, Glenn.
Is that the replacement for the dun dun dun?
No, I'm totally going to get a dun dun dun, but
that's for now.
For now.
I 100% concur with you on that.
As soon as I realized that it was going to be a War of the Worlds thing, I knew Sean was just going to be over the moon.
Let's let Sean start this week.
Okay, so first of all, how awesome to have a legit First Doctor story.
Yeah, right.
As opposed to just a brief cameo and then out the door with him to introduce whoever's on there. So that was very surprising and pleasant, and almost a little disappointing when he degenerated into a future version of the Doctor, and it's David Tennant's 10th, because it was like, oh, I was having such a good time with Grumpy. Then there's the War of the Worlds element. It's like, as soon as they said, oh, Dead London and Red Weed, I'm like, oh, bring it on. I am so ready. But it was extremely clever with finding a way to parallel the events and be in the events without actually being the events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of the book, and so that was absolutely incredible. I love the fact that we are given a journalist who kind of serves as a narrator.
Kind of.
Almost
she's narrating it as we're walking. In fact, they sort of break the the fourth wall because the Doctor gets after her for being too loud.
Quit blogging.
But she would be the narrator of the book,
right?
Which
was
not happening. But
no, absolutely,
so well done there.
Yeah.
And then Missy getting an incarnation of the Master, who is not the 10th Doctor's Master. And then the chemistry between Michelle Gomez and David Tennant is off the charts.
Yes, I would love to have them together again in another story, because that interaction is so wonderful.
And his limited patience for her.
Which, if any, it's interesting, because of all of the Doctors, at least the new series Doctors, other than Capaldi, you would think Tennant, who reached out time and again to try and salvage this relationship, would be more patient.
Right.
And wow, sick of her crap.
So I think we have to put this in perspective of, this is a future incarnation of the Doctor. So we're still presuming that this is probably the 8th Doctor that this has initially happened to. And so I think that actually explains why he's very, okay, I'm tired of this, because the events of the Time War haven't even happened for him yet. This 10th Doctor doesn't know anything about that, what's coming. And so I think it works really well that he is kind of like, okay, put off already. I'm kind of tired of this. But I also love the flirting aspect between Missy and him. I think that is just so perfect for this, especially when she plants one on him. Vastra walks in and says, "Get a planet." That was so good.
So, like, you don't have my attention already from elements A, B, and C. Hey, how about we throw the Paternoster gang in here for good measure? Okay.
I didn't realize how much I had missed them.
Mm-hmm.
Same.
Yep. We need to get their series on the schedule soon.
Yeah.
As always, I tend to jump into homework by just jumping into homework and
not prepping, not looking at pictures, not looking at album covers, disc covers, or
I had no idea who was in this until they showed up in this, and it's like it's weird, because unlike a Doctor Who episode with a Doctor that's come and gone, I pour over it, and I've got the case in my hands, and I'm staring at the beautiful artwork, and I'm hyping myself up for it. But with the Big Finish audios, I tend to just, because we get so many of them digitally, I just put the file in so I can listen to it in the car, and then later I go back and find it, and I am no end of surprised every single time. It's like, oh, the Cybermen are in this. Okay. Oh, so-and-so's in this one. All right. And this one was just one after another with these surprises. It was like, oh. So yeah, Sean was very happy.
Well, even for like me, I buy we're listening to the limited edition extended bonus feature one that has the diamonds on the front and only 2 faces on it, so I didn't realize the Paternoster game was in it until they showed up. I knew it was David Tennant and Missy, but that's it.
And Strax continues to be
a gem.
Just
a real gem.
A real gem. Just the funniest, dry, well-meaning, slightly befuddled. Yeah, the Paternoster gang makes everything better.
Yeah,
they just.
I like the fact that they split them up too, because it gave each one of them it gave Strax and Ginny and Vastra a kind of some room to breathe, to kind of do their own things for a little while before kind of bringing everybody together for the big climax. So I really like that. And Strax interacting with the Doctor before Vastra shows up. And then Vastra's very, when she gets back to Jenny and Jenny asks, what about Strax? Strax is okay. He's fine. And just knowing that Strax is okay and can take care of himself. I like that confidence in his ability from Vastra. Even though he is sometimes a bumbling idiot, he is still very capable in many situations, especially since he decided that after the world was being taken over by the tripods and the Martians, that he was going to repopulate the world somehow.
Underground.
Yeah, I don't know how he was going to do that, but he sure had determination to do that if necessary.
Well, and
my plan is on hold.
We sometimes forget that, while he's a Sontaran, he's still a capable warrior. He's just bumbling at everything else.
Yes, absolutely.
And this does a great balance of having him be a capable warrior and yet still be bumbling at the same time.
Agreed.
And his relationship and chemistry with Jessamy was another highlight for me. Just the two of them together as they traverse the landscape was just an absolute joy to listen to.
Right, especially when they get separated from the Doctor.
They're going to try to escape, and the tree line. Oh, brave choice! Those are on fire.
Yeah. No, the other trees, the ones that aren't on fire.
In their conversation about the palace of, I'll never trust a building with too many corners.
He says the Sontaran ships are round are spherical and round, and she says, when they roll away, it happens sometimes.
Rarely happens.
Rarely happens. That's what he said. Yeah, rarely happens.
I love the fact that there's that acknowledgement. Rarely.
It has happened from time to time, apparently.
It's a word that speaks volumes. Yeah, just full of that kind of awesomeness from top to bottom. I laughed so much, just giggle-inducing through other parts of it. Heartbreaking. Listening to Jenny be dead flat hypnotized and know that it's Missy behind it, and then to reveal that, oh yes, Vastra's here, and if you don't do what I say, I will. Oh, that was almost hard to listen to.
Well, and I also love that Missy tries to sort of play Jenny off of Vastra, asking her, what do you think of my pet or whatever. And Katrin, Jenny, actually, describing her, but then saying she's beautiful. So she's still, despite the fact that she's under this mind control, she still has this admiration and love for Vastra, which I thought came through and was really, really nice.
Beautiful prisoner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so much like that. And I don't know about you guys. I definitely got the feeling that this was meant to be a little bit later in Missy's line.
No.
Well, there's that conversation. It's obviously earlier.
It's much earlier. In fact, this is before
she's
Missy.
going through the same thing he is.
Yeah, she has been flung forward in her regenerations as well, because she's getting used to she talks about getting used to this body. She also talks about something else that hinted that she had come forward from a previous life, but I can't remember exactly what she said. But yeah, it is heavily implied that she
straight up talks about flitting through incarnations.
Yes, right. That's right.
Flitting through bodies.
Yes.
Well, I guess what I meant to say is that, okay, so not necessarily within the Master's timeline overall, because yes, she is a previous incarnation.
Well,
to the point where I think it's a very clever, if you wanted to, you maybe could point to this as, for the people who seem to think that John Sims is not the Master preceding Missy, but maybe at a later incarnation and that she came earlier, you could point to this as Exhibit A and go, well, because we don't know exactly where that time frame falls into.
Yeah,
didn't that final Bill story put that to rest though? Didn't that solidify when it was the multi-master episode?
I thought that was the one that.
I think based on their conversation, it was implied that she was after Sims with her conversation with
I always thought so too, but I thought that was one of the ones that actually threw more dirt into the water with it. And
maybe I'm not sure.
It's been a while since I've watched it, so. But yeah, no, not only that, but I just mean from the standpoint that that Missy, it's not just that it's a future version of the Master wherever he's at in his timeline. And if we are presuming that the Eighth Doctor is the overriding quote unquote current Doctor during these events, which is looking more and more likely.
Jacoby.
Yeah, it would make sense that Jacoby is the current Master.
Oh, Master, yes.
But then this particular time frame for Missy felt almost like it was that if you could slot this part of her story into the Missy who's trying to kind of be reformed by the 12th Doctor.
I think I could
because she didn't kill anybody.
It definitely pulls in those personality aspects.
Yeah, but I think I could buy that explanation if the Doctor wasn't very unstable and flitting through all of these incarnations so quickly. I have to assume that because she's been inflicted by the same thing, that she also is unstable and wouldn't be stable in this incarnation long enough to have all of the adventures she has from the 12th Doctor era.
And she does mention that she vaporized a few people.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
There were more people around than she vaporized them.
Right.
But did she do it or did the Martians do it?
Well,
she said she did.
I mean, she's responsible for the Martians too. So I guess in a way, even if the Martians did it, she did it. But no, she specifically says it in a way that she did it herself personally. So you guys may have to help me with this. I listened to this twice. I loved it so much that I went back and listened to it again almost right away. But for one reason, because I couldn't pick up on this planet, Missy is bored. So she has decided to create these Martians and this faux London and all of the trappings because she happened to read H.G. Wells, liked the book, but didn't like the ending. And so she's created this just basically as a time kill for her. And
And she hoped it would focus her so she would stop living through generation.
Right. So she's created this London. She's created this place. She's created these Martians. She's created this tripod. Where did the people come from or go? And why are the Paternoster gang here?
I thought they had said some sort of line about her kidnapping people from this time period of London.
Okay. I missed that, but I'm going to trust that probably is right because I assumed that must have been the case. But obviously
and that might have been a headcanon too.
Obviously she didn't kidnap enough place to populate all of London, but I think that that makes sense. Then that would make sense why Genestri is there too. Mm-hmm. Jessamy is there too. Jessamy is there too. So yeah, okay. Then if that's what you think, that's what I think. Even if it's headcanon, that's what I think too. But I didn't get it from either time through listening. I never felt like they explained why they were there. So
I want to say the doctors accused her of kidnapping all of these people, and she never confirms or denies anything. So if the doctor said that she did that, I just assume she did also.
I sort of wondered if this got maybe left out because apparently this story wasn't even supposed to be the 10th Doctor, and it was originally written different, and they had to bring who was the script editor on this? Well, see, the writer was Jonathan Barnes, and they brought the script editor in. What's not listed? He's not listed here. But anyway, they had to bring him in. Matt Fitton. They had to bring Matt Fitton in to kind of help get the voice of these characters because while the story is Jonathan's, from the behind the scenes that they talked in interviews, the story is Jonathan's, but they kind of the writing of the characters came from Matt Fitton. So anyway, so yeah, maybe that got lost in the transference of changing this story up a little bit.
Yeah,
it doesn't ruin the story in any way whatsoever. It just made me think both times, why are they there? If this is a completely different planet.
I'll go so far as to say that I think this is a nearly perfect story.
Yeah.
I do have one complaint on it.
What's your complaint?
It is Stephen Noonan's first Doctor. I think he sounds way too much like Anthony Ainley's Master.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think he sounds anything like the first Doctor.
Oh, so
There are times where I hear the first Doctor, but most of the time I don't.
To me, he's very much like, Tim Treloar, who I think does a good third Doctor, but when I start listening to it, I hear Tim Treloar. That's who does it? Yeah, Tim Treloar. Mm-hmm. And then, but as I get into the story, I get lost in the fact, and I completely buy into the fact that it's the third Doctor. And I kind of felt that Noonan was the same way. When he started, it almost took me a while to figure out to identify who it even was. And then as it goes on, and once I'd known it was the first Doctor, then I just fell into it and felt like that was Hartnell. And so for me, I thought as I got into it, it got much better. Again, like Treloar, is just not quite dead on. He's no what's the guy that does the Brigadier who does that just spot on.
Yeah.
But
see, I find Tim Treloar's third Doctor, the first couple go arounds, it wasn't quite on, but like in the Annihilators, I only ever heard John Pertwee.
Yeah.
In this, I think it's the smoothness of his voice is it's too smooth. And he almost plays it a little too smooth for who the first Doctor is. It feels like maybe I'm just also so used to wanting to hear David Bradley do his version of the first Doctor.
Yeah, see, but I've never felt
that
I felt that Bradley
his was also a characterization.
Yeah,
of the first
Bradley
Doctor. It was never spot on either.
Bradley kind of has the cadence, but he just doesn't have the tone that I think Hartnell had. And so it's well enough to buy it when you see him portray the first Doctor. But whenever I would hear him on audio, I always felt like it just wasn't quite there for me. I was still picturing him instead of Hartnell. So
I kept thinking this was the Ainley's master, especially when he first shows up. I was like, "Oh, so this is."
I didn't think he sounded like Ainley at all.
Really?
Yeah,
Huh.
no, not at all.
I'm with Glenn on this one. I thought immediately it was the first Doctor and just rolled with it. And it's like, well, I don't think it's David Bradley, but it's good. Okay, and it's off and running. No, I think for me the mistake for this is returning Jessamy to the same time frame as the Paternoster gang and allowing her to walk into the sunset. Because she even says, "Oh, I'd love to chronicle your adventures." And then they don't go anywhere. It's like this was part of this. She needs to be part of the new box set.
The next gang.
Yeah. So
she should be. She should be. The reason that she could be the narrator of these stories. What are you doing, letting her go away?
I sort of felt like. Well, I think that there's a reason for that, though. They have to let her go away because she has to be. She can't be with this doctor. She can't travel with this doctor. This doctor has another crisis that's happening right now, so you can't throw her into the mix.
He's not saying she should travel with the doctor. He's saying she should stick with the Paternoster.
Well,
gang.
I'm getting there, guys. Okay. So my point is that she's there with the Paternoster game, right? She's left in that same time frame. He didn't take her to the future. He left her in the same time zone.
I guess there is nothing to say.
That's my point. Is I think the reason why she gives her book to the doctor is that's a piece of her. And then she goes off so that, yes, I think they can tuck her away and bring her back at any time. They can encounter her at any time. I think what I liked about this is they didn't do anything finite. So they didn't rope themselves into making her part of the Paternoster game, but they tucked her away so that she can be later. So they can bring her back in. And so I think it was cleverly done that way, leaving it very loose and open-ended like that.
No, I want her to move into the house.
Because if she had, well, that's just it, though. If she had, they would have been locked into that, and they may have other stories in the pipeline or even recorded ahead of that. And so this was a neat way to put her aside until they could funnel her back into that, group when they needed to, or at the time they could. So I think it was well done.
Oh, yeah, because, recording things out of order and releasing them not at the same time has never been a problem for Big Finish.
Well,
let's give you a taste of the Second Doctor Adventures box set from 6B that we haven't done anything with yet in a Third Doctor Adventure story, even though it's going to be set way later in the guys.
It won't come out for years.
If you listen to Nicholas Briggs' interview, he was just chomping at the bit to get him in there because he knew it was going to be a few years out before he got the box set out there. So
I have an idea. Let's record a whole series of 60th anniversary audios during lockdown. And we got David Warner before he died, and
I'm glad they got David Warner before he died.
I am too. Which I don't know. Have we discussed this? I know this is a side note. He's married to or was married to
they were not married. They were not married. They were partners.
They were partners. Pardon me.
Yeah, Lisa Bowerman.
Yeah, Bowerman.
Yeah. They've been a thing for, I think, a few years. They met through Big Finish. They met on one of the recordings they did together. That's where they met.
Had we talked about that? I felt like I just found that out.
I brought that up on the show when he passed away.
I was too bereft to listen to you apparently at that point. Anyway, Big Finish doing something out of order, unheard of.
Well, and to be fair, Big Finish did a lot of that in the early days, but now that's the reason why we don't have the main range anymore, because they want to do things a little more timeline specific. Yeah. So, I think Oh, I lost my other thing that I was going to say about it. It may come back to me.
There was even a great bit of dialogue about, I think it was even from the Doctor, where he told her, he says, well, you're not being interviewed. And I went,
yeah. Which I thought
you wouldn't even get an interview.
Yeah, which I thought was funny because we, that's like our term for when he's,
I know,
when he's auditioning companions, we have said it's an interview phase. So that's funny.
Yeah, so much win.
I do remember what the other one was. So I think I got from the context of it that the 10th Doctor, in the future version of the 10th Doctor, the one that's going to happen, is the first time that Jenny and Vastra encounter, at least Jenny encounters the 10th Doctor, because she recognizes him. And I didn't get it from, she recognized him because the 11th Doctor had mentioned or showed what he looked like. I think he literally must encounter for the first time Vastra at least, and maybe even Jenny, before their wedding. And then that's why Caitlin says, well, yeah, you came to our wedding, because she recognized him without having anybody even have to say that he's who he is. So
yeah, I was a little torn on that. I couldn't quite tell if it was she identified him or she just can tell it's the Doctor when it's the Doctor, no matter who it is.
No, she's human. Come on.
I know, but she's smart.
That's not a thing that's been established. So
there's also context clues.
I think the context clue here for us was she encountered him in the 10th interview. Now, I think we know that Strax has not encountered this one because he doesn't recognize him, and he describes it as the little fellow in a bow tie. So.
Which he also implies that he's met the 13th Doctor.
Yeah.
Or the 5th.
The cherry
telling which.
Cherry girl. No, he says cherry girl with the yellow hair, but girl could imply because they.
With Strax,
yeah.
You don't know. He calls Jessamy boy the whole time.
Exactly. Well, he calls almost all girls boy.
Yeah, so you don't know if that's supposed to be 5th Doctor or
right.
13th Doctor. I wouldn't call 6th Doctor Cheery. He's the other blonde.
It didn't help that my brain immediately cast back to that audio that we listened to with the 5th Doctor and the Sontarans that Dan Starkey was in. Dan Starkey. But it wasn't Strax. And I was like, how would he know that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I totally fell down that rabbit hole going, So I can't find it, it's not important, but my comment about where Missy may be at in her timeline specifically hinged on when she said, oh, I just read it, meaning the Time Machine. Mm-hmm. Wasn't that the book that she was reading while, quote unquote, in prison under house arrest with the 12th Doctor?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. She was reading that. But for this, she read War of the Worlds.
Or, yeah, well, that's what I meant.
No, she's reading the Time Machine in...
She is reading the Time Machine in that. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, never mind.
According to TARDIS Wiki, there's a reference to and her reading it. Like, their continuity section says Missy knows that she's only gotten to War of the Worlds, and then in parentheses says Frontier in Space. So he must have mentioned.
Oh yeah, he was reading that on the ship when Joe and the Doctor were trying to escape the prison below decks.
Right,
he was on the command deck reading it.
You're right. You're absolutely right. In Frontier. Yeah, you're right.
Yep. So he never finished it then. He came back to it later.
Well clearly he didn't. In fact, I think that implies
puppets.
I think that implies that he hadn't even finished it, but he got interrupted at that point, but never came back to it. So she's remembering what she read as that incarnation, but never got to the end. So it makes even more sense. Actually, she did read the ending because she didn't like it. That's right.
Well, she said she got distracted and went listen to the audios.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Movie and
I was
stage
gonna
play.
I was
The
gonna ask
musical.
you, Keith, is there, or not Keith, Sean, is there a puppet version?
I am not aware of one, but
So
I will be looking.
I just wonder if that was a throwaway joke, because the 10th Doctor
Because there's
says
every
it.
other version of it.
He says
Yeah.
it when he's explaining to, I think it's Strax and what's her name, Jessamy, and he's explaining it to, I think even Vastra, about the book and whatever, and talking about it was a story written by H.P. Wells. But then later, when he's recounting that sort of kind of same conversation with Missy, he brings it up again.
Wasn't there a puppets?
Almost trying to get her to confirm it, but she doesn't really. It's good stuff. Very good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, let's move forward in the timeline and we'll look at another, I guess, I keep wanting to equate David Tennant with this, and I suppose it's just because it's his face, but he's not actually performing the 14th Doctor in this. But we're going to continue with Liberation of the Daleks, parts 9 through 12. And as we left off, I don't remember where we left off. I know we were in the sort of, what do they call it? I want to call it the Matrix, but it's not the Matrix. It's, they have a name for it.
Oh, the Dalek dome.
Yeah, well, they're in like a simulated world, I guess, is what it is. The Daleks are the creation of the one Dalek that's, being captive and coming up with all this stuff. And the one Dalek Supreme ends up, dissipating basically because he can't hold together in the real world. But I think what's really, really cool about these, for me anyway, is that the first page of the first two parts is virtually identical to TV 21st Century prints of the Daleks that were running back in the 1960s. And all the way down to the side panel, or the bottom panel that's turned sideways and has the part, because that was very much a thing that they did. And I'm glad that they only did it by the first page of each one, though, because back in the day, each part was usually only 1 or 2 pages, and then the next part was, would come later. So you only got it in pieces, and you got it in parts like that. It was very much denoted like that. I thought that was really cool. And the illustrations even harken back to that style. I think they're a little more polished in this than they were back in the day, but it gets the point across very much so.
There's a lot of Dalek fan service throughout this entire
Six Sigma.
line.
That was the Dalek that's in the tank they're using as dreams. Yeah, well, the into that when the Doctor actually goes into this simulation, and I think I guess he goes forward to find out what had happened after he presumably thinks it's been cleaned up, but he wants to go forward and to tell so he could say "I told you so" when he realizes that they didn't shut down the operation, because he's advising them to shut it all down, that it's dangerous and whatever. And then he goes forward in time, and then that's when he ends up inside the simulation, and he meets the stocky golden version of the Emperor Doctor, which I just went.
I like how they have Nick Briggs show up too and then kill him off.
Yeah, voicing the automated ones that are on the station. I love that too. And then they kill him, exterminate him. Yeah, that was very, very clever to give a Briggs cameo like that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, as I read this, as excited as Glenn knew I was going to be about the audio, that's how excited I knew Glenn was going to be about the comic.
Yeah, I absolutely love this. I mean, right down to and it just gets corny as it goes, but it works so well with the content that they're using at this point. Because before, I think they weren't they were taking it sort of in a tongue-in-cheek direction, but it was more the fact that it was because he's landed on this station that's this amusement park, that they're utilizing this imagery in order to sell Dalek adventures to people, which I thought was very clever. I mean, it's a clever story. But then it just kind of, as the imagined Daleks learn how to materialize in the real world, it kind of got to me, I felt like it was getting a little goofy. But the goofiness sort of works to its favor, because then when it gets to the point where we're actually seeing inside a simulation, which is in the style of the old Daleks comics, suddenly it starts to work really well, because it almost retcons those comics as something that happened within this matrix, within this simulation. So I thought that was kind of cool as they were going along with that as well. Not to mention, I really thought this thing was wrapping up.
I think that's my issue with it, is it feels like they're just padding out and dragging out the story.
And they may be. I'm not sure where they can go with it, because they do the whole thing about killing, was it Georgie or Georgette? Georgie's is the simulation one, right? And Georgette's the real one.
The one they killed.
Yeah. And so then the Daleks are going to use, I suppose, they're sending signals out to the station in order to take control of the Daleks that are the real Daleks that exist on that station, which was their part of their ploy. And then it just kind of gets, you're right. It feels like there's a little bit of padding here, and it gets quite wonky as they go. But when they flit away from there, and then they end it with him standing in front of the Uber,
other Emperor Dalek.
Emperor Dalek from the Evil of the Daleks. Man, I went. So I'm really, really enjoying this now. Mostly because they're just having fun with it. They're just going, how bonkers can we get with this? And I'm really enjoying it, because the casing that it's in, the construct that they've created for it, makes it work as a story.
Well, and there's an added level to it, that this is a story that only would work in the comic medium.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't do this particular adventure as a Big Finish audio or a television episode, because of the little touches that they're pulling in, specifically referencing other comics. And so it has that kind of quaint nostalgia to it, while being very meta within the confines of its storytelling. I'm with Keith. I feel like maybe it's drawn out just a little too much. Like I kind of expected when what was her name? Magritte was the Georgie. When she is shown by the Doctor, look, you can't trust them, look what they're going to do.
Right.
And then reverses it and kind of wrestles control back
from the Hypno Dalek.
From the Hypno Dalek. I kind of thought, okay, that's it. That's going to be the key to the end of the run for this. And we're going to start wrapping up because of what she did. But then the Daleks kind of swat that aside, like, we're not concerned about your petty thing that so what? We've already got control of this. And I was like, oh, okay. So now what are you going to do? So now you have to construct a new end game to get to the out. But oh no, we've got another surprise. Here's Super Big Dalek, and it's like, oh, cool.
Well,
but where are you going with that?
But I think you're right.
Yeah.
And this feels the most cliffhangery, like, okay, where are you possibly going with this? I do think it works that Georgette, the real version on the outside world, she takes the two ape women, I can't remember their names, and they somehow are able to get into the into the simulation. And so in order to quote unquote rescue the Doctor, although the Doctor ends up having to rescue them by putting everybody behind the TARDIS, because the TARDIS is, indestructible. It's going to fire back.
Shield on it.
Right. It's going to fire back at them and do the destroying. But
worst rescue ever.
But then just them, zapping out of there with the glove. That was kind of, that's how they got in. They used that to get in. And then zapping out of there with the glove, I thought, okay, well, wait a minute. Now it feels like that's where, to me, I felt like they were drawing it out. And I thought, okay, where can you possibly go with this? But then I completely shut up when I saw the last page. So I went, more, please.
Don't care.
All is forgiven.
So yeah, no, I felt the same way. I felt like it was coming to a conclusion, and I really felt like, okay, we're kind of pushing things here with, another 6 panels, 8 panels. Oh, okay, that's fine.
Okay, keep pushing.
I really think that they'll probably wrap things up before the specials. I think the magazine's intention probably is to move forward with the 15th Doctor in the comics, because that's what they've done. They have a track record for always having the most current Doctor in. In fact, I think, if I remember right, this is the first time in like 20 years that they've had a Doctor a version of the Doctor in the comics prior to their season or bulk of their performance on television. So the other time, I can't remember what it was, but there was apparently another one back in the 80s or 90s where that happened. McCoy, maybe. I don't remember. I say bring it on. I'll take 2 more issues. Thank you.
I'll take 2 more so long as it's only 2 more. I think if it keeps going more than that, I'm going to be a little frustrated.
That's why I say 2, because I really feel like they'll wrap up before the 15th. I mean, they've only got, well, technically, 2 more issues I believe will drop before, if the specials start on the anniversary, then I suspect that they'll have 2 more magazine issues before that. So, anything else on Revelation? No, Liberation. Well, what do we got come up on the schedule, Sean?
Oh, coming up on the schedule, we will be tackling, for part of our 60th anniversary tie-in, the book Timeless Adventures, the unofficial story of how Doctor Who conquered television, by Brian J. Robb and Polaris Publishing, which looks to be a very interesting story. And then some more of Doomsday for the 60th anniversary. We will finish off that story with the Big Finish Audio Doomsday Dying Hours. It'll be hours 22 through 23. And then whatever Doctor Who digital channels, social media for Doomsday Hour 24. We'll see if James Goss puts the kibosh on her or not. Then we return to Once and Future, and then we have some fun things on the horizon. So,
all right, you can find us at website travelingvortex.com. If you get any value out of the podcast, why not consider putting some value back into it? You can do that by clicking on the Patreon link and support us there. And when you become a patron of this podcast, you unlock more audios and specials by us, including that story that we teased last episode of Sean's Adventures in Wonderland. And if you can just give us $1 a month, $1 a month is all, would help us tremendously. We'd love for you to give more, $5, $10, but whatever you can give certainly helps out this show, helps keep us going. We right now we're guaranteed for another year, but after that we probably will have to close up shop if prices keep going up, because server space is very pricey nowadays. Then, of course, make sure you join in on the conversations on our listeners forum Facebook. You can find us on TikTok, and you can also find us on X and Instagram, although we don't post as much on Instagram as we should. But I think Instagram's, mostly for when we go to conventions. Anything else we need to touch on before we close this show? If not, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you. Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.
Direction point! Direction point!
A Doctor Who podcast network.